This episode is based on the shooting video, the official court transcript, police documentation, and publicly available records. What follows is analysis and commentary, not a statement of proven fact. Everyone discussed is presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Viewers are encouraged to review the source material and form their own conclusions. Courtrooms don't fall apart all at once. They come undone in small moments. A question left unchallenged, a narrative left to drift, a silence that lasts one beat too long. And that's where we are today. Still in the courtroom, still inside the transcript, still watching a case weaken in real time. Before we continue, it's important to understand exactly where we are. We are still in the same cross-examination, the same witness, the same sequence of questions where the defense begins tightening its strategy. In episode 28, we covered the early portion, the first misdirections, the first shifts in the narrative, the first opportunities the prosecutor let slip by. Today, we pick up right where we left off. We are moving into pages 17 through 37 of the official transcript, the section where the questions grow sharper and the silence grows heavier. This is the part of the transcript where the story doesn't just shift, it slips. And once it slips, it's hard to pull it back. This is Delta Deep Dive. Now let's dive a little deeper. Failure number 10. The defense shifts the focus away from the shooting and onto property lines. You understood the easement ran across your property, correct? This has nothing to do with bullets, danger, or intent. It's a detour, a way to make the victim look confused about the law. The prosecutor should have said objection, relevance. Instead, she lets the distraction stand. Failure number 11. The defense asks the victim to interpret the defendant's emotions. You knew he was upset about the plowing, didn't you? The witness answers honestly, I don't know what he was upset about. That should have ended it. The prosecutor should have said objection, calls for speculation. Instead, she allows the defense to invent a motive that never existed. Failure number 12. The defense reframes fear as aggression. You were angry that day, weren't you? This is a classic reversal. Turn the victim into the aggressor. The prosecutor should have said, objection, argumentative. Instead, she lets the narrative flip. Failure number 13. The defense chips away at the timeline. You didn't call the police right away, did you? If you can't discredit the danger, you discredit the reaction. The prosecutor should have said, objection, mischaracterizes the testimony. Instead, she lets the implication linger. Failure number 14. The defense suggests the victim caused his own trauma. You could have stayed inside, correct? This is victim blaming, plain and simple. The prosecutor should have said objection, improper. Instead, she lets the blame shift. Failure number 15. The defense begins rewriting the shooting itself. You didn't actually see the gun pointed at you, did you? This is where a prosecutor must stand up. This is where the objection should have come fast and sharp. Instead, silence. And silence lets the defense turn a clear moment into a blurry one. Failure number 16. The defense minimizes the danger. The glass didn't hit you, correct? The issue isn't the glass. The issue is the gun. The prosecutor should have said objection, irrelevant. Instead, she lets the shooting become a debate about debris. Failure number 17. The defense reframes aggression as self-defense. You approached him first, didn't you? This is the moment the roles reverse. The prosecutor should have said objection, assumes facts not in evidence. Instead, she lets the rewrite continue. Failure number 18. The defense suggests the victim exaggerated the danger. You didn't think he was actually going to shoot you, did you? The prosecutor should have said objection, calls for speculation. Objection, argumentative. Instead, she lets the defense imply that the victim should have predicted the future. Failure number 19. The defense undermines the video. The video doesn't show everything, does it? This is where a prosecutor must anchor the truth. The video shows enough. The video shows the danger. Instead, she lets doubt take root. Failure number 20. The defense reframes the shooting as a misunderstanding. This was just a disagreement that got out of hand, correct? A disagreement, not a shooting, not a gun, not shattered glass. The prosecutor should have said, "Objection, argumentative." Instead, she lets the violence shrink into a neighborly spat. With every failure, the case weakens. The narrative drifts, the danger fades, the victims disappear. Because silence doesn't just fail to protect the truth, silence allows the truth to be replaced. By the end of this section of the transcript, the courtroom isn't talking about a man firing a gun at an occupied tractor. They're talking about property lines, plowing, misunderstandings, anything except the moment the shots were fired. And that brings us to the real problem, because by the time we reach the end of these pages, one thing becomes painfully clear. The defense didn't win this ground. The prosecutor surrendered it. Not with a ruling, not with an argument, but with silence. Silence when the narrative twisted. Silence when the victims was blamed. Silence when the danger was minimized. And silence when the shooting was rewritten in real time. And silence has a cost, because a prosecutor who won't object becomes a prosecutor who won't protect. A prosecutor who won't challenge becomes a prosecutor who won't clarify. And a prosecutor who won't fight becomes a prosecutor who leaves her victims standing alone. These weren't complicated objections. These weren't legal traps. These were the basics, the bare minimum, the moment any prepared prosecutor would have stepped in. But she didn't. And when a prosecutor refuses to take control of the courtroom, someone else will. In this case, it was the defense. They filled the silence she left behind. They shaped the story she never defended. They reframed the danger she never articulated. They took the narrative she abandoned and they ran with it. And that is how a shooting becomes a misunderstanding, how a gun becomes a question mark, and how a victim becomes a problem, how the truth becomes negotiable. Not because the evidence changed, not because the facts changed, but because the prosecutor never stood up to protect them. This is what happens when the person responsible for presenting the truth refuses to speak it. And in the next episode, we move deeper into the transcript, into the parts where the consequences of that silence don't just disappear, they take over. Because once Lauren Wickman stops fighting, the case doesn't just weaken, it collapses. This has been Delta Deep Dive, and that was The Failures of the Prosecutor.